Well, I think we'll go ahead and welcome everybody to the third Thursday Artist Talk with John Kellen. And I would love to read you a little bio from our website. This is information that John shared with us, but if you haven't taken a look, I will give you a quick little read on John's background. A picture is worth 1,000 words. The language of photography is what John has titled this series of a fine art photography show. And after a 30-year career in international business, real estate development, academia, and philanthropy spanning more than 60 countries, John Kellen returned to Willmar to care for his aging parents. John stated in his biography, "I have always loved photography, having received my first camera when I was very young. And over my lifetime, I've documented my experiences and travels behind the lens. Fast forward to this new chapter as a caregiver, the experience and change of space has allowed me to pursue my artistic inclinations and photography at a much higher level. I'm excited to be working alongside so many talented artists associated with the Southwest Minnesota Arts Council. My focus is primarily nature photography, mixed in with a bit of photojournalism, architecture, and history. I am also working to document my mother's journey with Alzheimer's disease." John Kellen of Willmar received a SMAC Emerging Artist grant to work on a project. And as I said, it's titled "A Picture is Worth 1,000 Words, the Language of Photography." The final project includes 25 matted and framed photos and accompanying texts that share the story of his mother's journey with Alzheimer's as the two of them create life experiences together. So we are just so honored and happy to have John with us and happy to talk about his work. I'll give you a little agenda of the day, and then we can do some introductions. So we'll do introductions. We will then switch to Crystal's going to share a screen that will show she told me earlier about an 8-minute video that will show you each of those. There's actually 29 portraits, 29 photos. And so all of the imagery, it will be contained within this 8-minute video. So you'll get to see his work. And then after that, we'll come back and John can talk a little bit about his work and his vision and where he might be going after this, because John's actually received another SMAC grant to do another series. So he can talk a little bit about that, and then there'll be time for questions. So having said all that, I'm Nicole DeBoer. I'm the executive director at the Southwest Minnesota Arts Council. I see all faces that I know and I'm happy to be online with. I'm calling in from Marshall. It is a really beautiful day. My little guy just got back from a bike ride with his ma. So we are happy that it's 47 degrees out today and hope it just continues to warm up. Carolyn, would you mind going next? And then you can turn it over to someone else.
All right, I am Carolyn Koska, and I am the grants administrator here at Southwest Minnesota Arts Council, also calling in from Marshall. And I will pass it over to Sherry.
Hi, I'm Sherry Buzzio. I'm former manager and productions coordinator from the Barn Theater, currently a Candy, Ohio County board representative for SMAC, and I'm calling in from Mesa, Arizona, and great admirer of John's work and so appreciative of his help with Child's Play program at the Barn last summer. So just can't say enough about this.
Cool. Thank you.
Show, it's absolutely beautiful. And I'll turn it over to Crystal.
Hello, everyone. I am calling in from Marshall, Minnesota as well. I'm the marketing coordinator for SMAC, and I'm an individual artist as well. I think that's about all we were sharing. I'll turn it over to Maggie.
Hi, I am Emmy Fuller and grateful to all of you for helping me with the grant for my painting and looking forward to John's show. I'm with my pesky dog Daisy, who, because I'm in the chair and it's after 5, thinks it's playtime. So I will be muted throughout all of this.
So dogs are welcome.
Yeah. John, I guess we would be happy to have you do an introduction and then we'll move into the video.
Okay, cool. John Kellen, calling from Willmar, where it's also beautiful out. And I grew up in Willmar, went to high school here, and then after hiatus, I left, went to grad school in Arizona, ended up in Tucson, Arizona for about just over 30 years, and have returned to Willmar about 2.5 years ago to take care of my aging parents. And it's been definitely a challenge, but it's also been a very much of a gift, and the opportunity to really pursue my photography at a much deeper level than I have for years. I've been taking photographs ever since I was young, and I've always thought about doing something with them, writing a book or archiving them, and this happened to be the opportunity. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here, and for SMAC, and for all the support, and having my work see the light of day. It doesn't do much good sitting in my studio stacked up, and which I have plenty more. So, but it's been fun, and I'll just I'll leave it at that for now, and then I'll talk a little bit more, I guess, after we watch a little slideshow. Come here, Mama.
Yeah,
And say hello.
a long time.
Long time. Yep.
Yeah.
And come here. And come and say hello. I'm showing a slideshow of my photographs. Yep. These are ladies in Marshall. They're in Marshall. Mhm. Mhm.
It's yeah.
Yep. And this work, doing a little work, having a little artist talk. Yep. Yep. Be right. I'll be out in a little while. Okay. I'll make us some supper. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You get to the door. There you go. Cool.
Yay, so that was great.
Thank you, Crystal. Appreciate that. You may have saw a little cameo appearance of my mother,
Yeah.
Colleen. She's pretty cute.
Yeah.
She's struggling with the disease, but she retains her sense of humor in spite of it. So it's as much as it's a challenge, it's also I just try to look at the time that I have with her is really pretty special. So, and this whole show is a lot of it is really dedicated to her. It was when I was writing the grant and thinking about what would I show, how do you choose amongst tens of thousands of images, and what's the show, and exploring this role as an artist as opposed to just a photographer, or someone who takes pictures and puts them in a photo album. But I think the feedback was from the people who were reviewing the grant application were very much interested in the story of my mom and wanted to see pictures of her. And in the application, there's a limit of 10 pictures. So I was focusing more on ones that I thought were maybe better aesthetically or technically and so forth. But really, it comes back to the storyline and the reason why I'm here. A, because this woman gave me birth many years ago, and B, because now she needs me, and being back with her and caring for her has opened up a whole new world that I hadn't really envisioned this way. I'd always thought that I would come back and focus on archiving my work and writing a book and kind of sharing stories of my travels around the world. But it really kind of hit home when I was back here and was connected with SMAC and some of the other organizations in Minnesota. And Milan Village Art School, I learned how to do the matting and framing. And so, yeah, each step along the way, I joined a photography club, and that led to monthly assignments to go, photograph red barns or back roads or specific topics. And I found myself thinking, well, my mom probably would like being along with as much as I like my time alone. And, it started off as a way of having time for myself and caring for the caregiver. And was suggested in one of the first books I read on Alzheimer's and caregiving was, you need to take time for yourself. Otherwise you very well could suffer from burnout. And anyway, photography is something that I've loved and I've done ever since I was young. I think I got my first camera when I was in junior high, and I've been taking pictures ever since. And I've got boxes and photo albums and slides, and that's a whole nother topic for coming up this coming year that I'm working on, actually archiving that. But just having the time when I asked Mom if she'd love to, if she would like to come and join me on a joyride, and right away she was perked up and like, yeah. And one thing led to another, just little circles around Candiota County and the state parks and the lakes up here. It's a pretty beautiful part of the country. And then it kind of expanded. We go to Marshall. In fact, maybe a little kind of back up a little bit. The slideshow I included in the beginning there, some historical photos of the family, and kind of I had a storyline coming full circle because I was born in Marshall, and my mom was as well, and she grew up there. And my grandmother Ida was the family matriarch. She was a single mom and raised her 3 kids, and had a full-time job, and played organ in the church, and was very active in Marshall. And the more I dug into it and started looking at genealogy, come to find out my great grandfather was one of the founding members of Marshall. He homesteaded in 1872. So this connection of place and being here at this time again in my life after living in Arizona for many years, it kind of hit me as like there's a reason why I'm here, and the reason why I'm doing this work, and not just the caregiving work, but as a expression of my own interest in travel and search of beauty, and trying to capture in photography what I'm seeing out in nature. So it's maybe a little bit rambling, but it's my first stab at it.
So share some insights about your current show at the SMAC Gallery and maybe where you're going from here.
Yeah, well, again, I appreciate the opportunity to have other people see it. Ultimately, as an artist, as you're creating, it's amazing while you're doing the work, whether that's painting or photography or the performing arts. Really, it's in the sharing of that work is really, for what I'm finding out, is probably the most gratifying, and seeing other people being able to enjoy it and hopefully enjoy it and see something in it for themselves. Hopefully, in this particular exhibit, it's a story about my mom and myself and our journey with her Alzheimer's, and it turned into kind of an odyssey traveling all around the state. We go to Marshall periodically to visit my grandmother, Ida. My mom still thinks that Ida is alive, even though she's been gone for about 25 years, and that's part of her disease progression. But learning to be a caregiver, I just kind of go with it. It's like, okay, sure, we'll go. She wants to buy her flowers, and let's take her out for lunch. And yeah, okay. At first I was saying, well, no, my grandma's gone. But it's just like, you can't really have a rational conversation with somebody with Alzheimer's. So you learn to kind of weave and bob around it and keep them happy and keep them engaged. And she loves to go on rides. So anyway, we go to Marshall, and we were taking back roads and went to Camden Park, and that's where we both learned to swim. and it kind of hit me. It's like, well, that's where she used to go when she was a girl. And that's where my first memories as a child, even though we lived in Minneota, I was born in Marshall, and that was Camden State Park was one of the places that we went to. And so one thing led to another, and we joined what's called a state park passport club. And that was kind of on a whim. It's like, okay, well, let's see how many state parks we can go to. Well, turned into, over the course of a summer, I think about 8 or 9 months, we ended up going to all 72 of the state parks that you can get to without having to go by boat. And it turned out to be pretty wild, because I was thinking, well, maybe if we get halfway there, that would be cool. But it almost kind of got to be a little bit of a, I wouldn't say maybe obsession is a little bit strong, but it was a quest. And Mom had fun. We'd pull out the map. It's like, okay, well, where do you want to go, Mom? And then I try to figure out how far she could handle, how many miles, and is she going to be able to deal with a hotel? And, I'm not going to drive, 5 hours to the north part of the state and then turn around and drive back. And so it ended up being quite a journey. And each time, on different levels, we were both getting a lot out of it. Mom is engaged. She's reading signs. She's looking for wildlife. She loves Bambi and ducks in the pond. And, communication is reduced to a very base level. She used to be very eloquent, had an amazing vocabulary over her lifetime. And to see her now being able to maybe get out a few words, maybe get a sentence, a lot of times it's, grunting or touching, or, I can tell when she's excited, and, and maybe I'm reading into her facial expressions, but I've just got to feel that she's enjoying it. She's engaged, as opposed to sitting at home or being in a nursing home someplace. So the more that I can get her out and experiencing life and providing some semblance of what is the quality of life that I can help provide her given her circumstances. And then on the other side, as an artist, as a photographer, it gets me to see places that I've never seen before, amazingly beautiful spots in our state. I've learned a ton historically. I love history. I'm a voracious reader. I love to learn. And so each one of these places has a storyline, and very interested in the indigenous peoples and that, so a lot of these places have a specific significance. And, I'm getting all riled up about it. It's like, well, this is really cool. And Mom's like, oh, well, look at the rock, or look at, it's on different levels, but there's a sense of joy in our joy rides. And that's what I tried to portray in this show. And you try to think, well, how many images, and, are they, are they your best images? Maybe, perhaps not, but it's the pictures of Mom and a few of us together, and a spontaneous float plane ride out to Isle Royale, which was a peak life experience for me personally, because I love to fly, and it happened so spur of the moment. People normally spend months or years trying to plan these trips and get reservations and being able to get on and off the island. And it just so happened that it happened literally in a couple of days. And the spontaneity, just seeing the look on my mom's face as we were having our morning coffee and looking out at the waves crashing on the rocks right on Lake Superior. It's one of those peak life experiences that, I know I'll never forget. And Mom would forget almost immediately, were it not for photography. And then kind of coming back to the theme of this, a picture's worth 1,000 words. She loves looking at pictures. And so I've made memory books for her. I keep them digitally. And so I'll pull up an iPad and I'll kind of shuffle through photographs, and just to see her face light up again. And then I'll explain, this is where we were, and this is what we were doing. And I can't say with certainty, but I believe that it brings her back, or at least for a moment, it lights her up. And so those little things that you work for, or that you hope that you can share and experience that together in on different levels. So it was maybe more than you bargained for, but that's
great. Thank you. Are there specific questions that the audience might have? I would love to hear your plans. Oh, Sherry, I think was saying something. You got to unmute, dear.
Thank you. I was curious as to what might be next for your project. This was remarkable and it's been quite a story. I'm sure it's hard to think about what to dive into next after such a big project, but I'd be curious to see what's next for you, John.
Well, funny you should ask. I was fortunate to receive another SMAC grant. So this year I'm going to be starting on delving into macro photography, really looking, close up. I do some macro photography, but upgrading equipment and getting better at it, and taking classes on how to really get great imagery using it's called stacking, where you take multiple photographs and you put them one after another. I've upgraded technology. Also have another grant I'm working on with the Minnesota State Art Board. So I'm really feeling very grateful these days. I never really expected to be here. And having said that, I think things happen for a reason. If you're really going to take your art form to a higher level, you need to be more professional about it. And in that process, I'm also going to be, learning my equipment better. I've upgraded cameras. I upgraded a new iMac so I can use the software, Photoshop and Lightroom and Topaz. And there's a ton of stuff to learn, and I love to learn. So I'm looking forward to that. And looking at really becoming better at my craft, and being very conscious of what it is that I'm shooting, and how can I express what I'm seeing to others. And so I'm very much looking forward to that. And looking for places to show the work, and probably will be doing some things online, and in talks with a few other venues about wanting to get this this work actually back to Willmar. That may happen, as in one of your previous Thursday chats, they were talking, what do they call it, traveling exhibition or something like that. So this is actually technically the third iteration. It went up at the WEAC Gallery in Willmar first, but under lockdown, so nobody really saw it. And then there was a call for artists. Artists respond to social isolation. And so I was able to then get the show, not fully, but most of the images into assisted living home here in Willmar. And that was fun because a lot of the elderly folks were really excited about the images, and that brought stories of girls growing up on farms, and they really liked the birds, or each story was a little different. And I was surprised by how how well they were received, and what I thought was going to be a relatively routine hanging of my pictures ended up being about 4 hours, because people kept stopping me and asking me about, oh, are you the photographer? And, oh, I've read your articles in the paper. Or turned out there was a connection with people who knew my mom, or turns out one of the photographs of my mom fishing, holding up a bass, and with her sidekick, the dog. She loves dogs and she loves fishing. She doesn't like to eat fish, but she loves both of those activities. Well, anyways, turns out I was up at visiting a friend of mine up near Cloquet or Eveleth, and turns out that her mother, Jody's mother, is actually the woman in this particular facility. So it's like all of a sudden you have that connection, even though we were masked, we didn't really know who we were. And she kept coming around looking at the photograph and looking at it again and looking at it again. Finally, she was asking about the dog. I said, "Oh, it's my friend Jody." She said, "Oh yeah, that's my daughter." I'm like, "Oh wow, Edith." I knew her mom, but I hadn't seen her for decades. So yeah, so I just in addition to getting better at what it is that I'm doing, looking for places to share it as wide as possible. I have a pretty extensive network around the world from my previous careers, and social media following, and that's partly what's encouraged me to keep going, because people just say, "Oh, geez, are you going to write a book, or are you selling your work? And, I've had this conversation a number of times with like, well, how do you price it? And, what's it worth? And all those sorts of things that I'm kind of working through. But, if there's an interest for me to be able to keep doing this work and ultimately, kind of looking at my own mortality through the eyes of my parents, it really kind of hit me. It's like, if I'm going to do this, I need to do it now, because there's no guarantee for me either, even though I'm relatively healthy and I've got hopefully some good years left in me. But it's like, that old saying, it's like, well, I'll do it one day when, at some point I'll do it. It's like, well, it doesn't do me any good to have images in boxes or on computers or hard drives or whatever. And so I am working to get out the best work that I can, continuing to work on what it is that I'm doing. And then, ultimately, hopefully going to have some shows, hopefully maybe at the barn. I didn't realize that you had retired, Sherry. I'm happy for you, and I'm sorry, I'll miss you. It was fun working with you and working with kids. And, that's another aspect of this. I'd love to share it with young people and maybe encourage them to get into photography. And, the technology has become so amazing. On the one side, digital photography is really is amazing. On the other side, film and developing film and, that whole art form is sort of an art, a lost art form that I also love doing that. So I'm not really sure where that's all going to lead, but I just have a feeling that there's enough interest in what it is that I'm doing that I'm gonna pursue it as much as I can, for as long as I can.
It's funny you should mention working at the barn and that exhibit, because I was thinking too how much those students would maybe enjoy seeing, what has gone on now. I know they couldn't get to your exhibit when it was at WEAC, but I'm happy to volunteer at the barn anytime and would love to see an opportunity for those kids to come back and at least see your work virtually or whatever happens this summer. So
Yeah, no, that'd be fun. I'd love to share it with them. And I know there are a lot of the kids who were really excited and hands-on. I was surprised that they were out there all over my old gear, my old cameras. I've had cameras from all sorts of cameras, and they were picking them up and playing around with them, and it was kind of wild to see that. But it's as we had talked, it'd be fun. A project that I had talked about with a middle school back in Tucson was getting funding for a number of cameras and then pairing up kids and giving them some basic training on how to use them and imagery and how to focus and some basic parameters about photography, and then giving them assignment and see what they come up with, and then producing something for them, because I can produce mats or little small frames or do things so that they have something to take home to their families that shows, hey, here's what I created. And who knows, you never know, you might spark the next Ansel Adams or the next photographer who can do something really wonderful. And so I love being able to do that too. So kind of maybe bouncing all over the board and try to focus on one thing at a time. But that's kind of my nature. I a little scattered. My friend used to say, he said, my ADD has ADHD. And I was never diagnosed with that, but it's like, well, maybe that explains some of my personality, but no, not really. I don't think that's necessarily the case.
I think that's what makes art exciting, is the enthusiasm and passion.
Sure.
And remind me to share a connection with you with the YMCA, because they are interested in doing some more this summer. So,
oh, cool.
Talk
And I would also jump on that and say that you should, if you're thinking about one middle school, think about all the middle schools in the region. The Southwest West Central Service Co-op is an educational support organization for all the public schools in the region, in our 18 county region, same region.
Cool.
And SW, Southwest West Central Service Co-op, they have an interest in photography as a career, and they offer some of that career path education specifically in photography. So
wow.
I would have the connection there for you.
Oh, that'd be
sometime.
fun. I'm an educator too. In my past life, I taught international business and cross-cultural communications at the University of Arizona. And I've worked with kids, I've mentored social entrepreneurs for many years. And I love engaging young people and just getting them to see their potential, that they can do whatever they set their mind to. And I've been really fortunate in my life to be able to travel around the world and do a lot of things that as a kid growing up, I never really imagined, and you start looking back at the connections. There's a quote, I don't know if it was Steve Jobs or somebody said, you can't connect the dots going forward. It's not until you look back, it's like, oh, it was like that teacher inspired me, or it was this, I got to this school, or I decided that I wasn't going to be a radiologist and instead got into international business and German. And, that set me off on a whole other path. But, with young kids, they're just, they're like this blank canvas. Or, I mean, they've got a personality, but if you can inspire them to, do what they really love to do, and going back, I not that you can really change the past. I regret not taking more art classes. One of my favorite classes at Gustavus was an art history class, even though I thought it was going to be kind of a slough class, and ended up being, hard as hell. It was really tough, but it was totally fascinating, and learning about different techniques and perspective and lighting and how these painters did this stuff. And I remember sitting in front of a Botticelli's Venus. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that or familiar with that painting. It's like, oh my God, it's this huge thing. It's like the whole wall, and you have to step back, way back, to even get the perspective. And I remember looking at it in Jansen's art book that I still have. And so, but going forward, it's like you can't do anything about what's past, but what you can do is right here and now. It's like I can make the decision to pursue what it is that I love doing, and in the same breath, it's like, well, what sort of legacy are you going to leave? Because this experience with my mom and my dad passing, it's like you realize my dad was really clear. He said, you can't take any of this stuff with you, and he used another word that's maybe a little more colorful, but he gave away everything that he had purchased, and they sold their home, but all the furnishings, all the art, everything was given away. He said, I don't have need for it, and give it to somebody else who could use it. And he said, you really can't take these things with you. At the end of your life, you start looking at your relationships with the people that you care about, who you love, and what are those peak life experiences that you've shared. And that's what's really meaningful when you get to that stage. And so I'm hopeful that when I get to that stage, and hopefully I'll have, a long life and a good, maybe 20-year, 30-year run if I'm lucky, and don't have any health issues, or don't get in a car accident, or any number of other maladies that might happen to me. But in the meantime, there's this sense of urgency that do it now, don't wait. There's no time to think about, well, yes, think about it and put it in perspective. But if you're really interested in something and doing something, just like go for it. And what you have all inspired me is that there are these really great organizations that are there to help you and to make connections for you and introduce you to somebody. If they got an idea, chances are somebody else, like you say, I'd love to go tour to these middle school kids and just say, hey, here's, and I technically not a professional. Well, I am a professional photographer. I have to say that. I have to declare that, because up until now, I've always said I'm artistic, but I'm not really an artist. And having that conversation, like, oh, okay, well, now you are. So you say the word, and it's so, and from the standpoint of being able to support a lifestyle and make a living doing it. And a lot of the photographers need to, or choose to, be portrait photographers, or do high school photos, or weddings, or there's, those are more the standard sorts of things that people do. And I'm hopeful in this exploration that there may be a way that I can, through various means, be able to maybe sell some work online, or, I don't know, determining, what price points are. And, you both Crystal and Nicole have both been kind of giving me some pointers in terms of, just having basic black frames and white mats. And, I get kind of overboard with, a lot of the colors and the combos, and you put them all together and it kind of looks like a mismatch. But ultimately, that's part of my learning process in this whole thing. But it's definitely inspired me to do more and to learn more and get better at what it is that I'm doing. And so hopefully this is just the first of many. And as this particular show has expanded, I've added a few additional images, a little bit more of the storyline, the connection with Marshall, and that's specifically because of SMAC and where you're located. And going forward, to if the images don't sell, then maybe to donate them to a hospital or to a nursing home or to some other venue where people can actually enjoy them. Because for me, it doesn't do any good to, as it is, my space is already limited and I'm stacking stuff on top of each other, and it's like, well, that doesn't, that seems kind of crazy. Ultimately, how many images do you really need ultimately? So hopefully get this more exposure.
John, I would like to jump in here. So SMAC also awarded me a grant to work on some paintings, but also to put together an artist website. And part of that is to interview artists, talk about whatever they want to talk about, however they want to talk about it, and then feature them in conjunction with my blog on this site. Because my tagline for art is loved by art. And all the different ways that you can support artists. So if you're interested in doing an interview with me at some point in the next, I don't know, whenever, let me know.
I'd be happy to. Yeah, I love meeting artists. I love viewing art and learning about artists. And where are you located, Maggie?
I am in Montevideo.
Okay, that's close.
Yeah, so we can, we can figure that out. We'll talk about this. I will put in the chat my email.
Okay,
and then you
cool.
can just contact me when you're ready to.
Cool.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd be
thanks.
happy to do that. Sure.
Great.
Yeah, I'd love to see your work too, and congratulations. It's I think it's really awesome. Who
knew? Thank you.
Well, right. Yeah. Who knew? A year ago, I would have never dreamed that I would be doing this. And when I was writing the grant and when I first met Caroline, it kind of opened up. It's like, oh, wow, okay, maybe I could do this. I'm a fairly decent writer, and hopefully my photography is something that might be of interest. And I've struggled with comparing myself to other people, and I realized that there's a lot of really great photographers and amazing artists out there, and I'm learning to just really accept what it is that I do and not to compare it to somebody else. It's just produce the best that I can be doing on any given day, and ultimately going through that process and learning and getting the feedback and here, this is kind of a direction you might go. And when I was rewarded, when I got the news about that, Caroline, I did this little happy dance. It's like, oh my God, I got. It's like, oh, cool. And then it's also like, oh, okay, now I got to produce. Now there was a kind of a recognition. It wasn't right away because I was really excited for the first period of time, and then when I started working, it's like, oh, this is quite a bit of work to put on a show, and and I'm going to have to do this and this and this, and and I don't have my own studio, so I'm going back and forth to Milan to use their framing studio, which is another outstanding resource. And here again, who knew that these rural communities would be so rich in their resources and people, and really I'm just very, very impressed with the people that I've met, and I'm very grateful that I'm here today to have this little chat, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter. What does that look like? And it's like, okay, well, you've done this. It's like one of my mentors used to say, beware what you ask for. It's like, now you've created the monster, now it's time to feed it. And so it's gonna be a great year, because I know that I love learning, and I've got lined up some really great instructors to help me with my own technique and support to get some new technology that will help me just be better at the work that I do, and to take it to that next level. So hopefully when all is said and done, a year from now, when I'm finishing up these other projects and say, okay, well, I can see where I was here today at this particular exhibit, and then what can I create next that is worthy of or meritorious, as Nicole told me once. I'm using your words, I hope you don't mind, of grants, and really conscious of that, that people have raised this money and they're gracious and enough to let me use it. And so I want to really make sure that that I do people proud, and that I very what's the word? That I really take it seriously and make sure that the money is well spent ultimately.
Well, we sure are honored to have your work in the SMAC Gallery. It's a really beautiful show. If you have a moment, Carolyn, Crystal, and I see it every day, or every third day, because as a reminder, SMAC staff are still taking turns in the office. The office is open every day, but there's only one of us there. If you happen to call in and we're already on the other line, you'll probably go to voicemail. So yeah, we're just trying to keep the ship moving forward and keep the office open, but still stay safe, and we have our cleaning processes. So anyways, we are very honored to have you in the gallery. And if Sherry or Emmy have a chance to get to Marshall and see it in person, it's definitely worth the trip. Any final thoughts? We've just got a few minutes left on before Zoom poops out on us.
Well, John, it was really fun to see your mom, and thank you for sharing your story. And it has been a joyride looking at your virtual exhibit, and I think you're a very worthy steward.
Well, thank you, and for all you do, and for being here. I'm grateful for your time, and hopefully we'll see you again. I'll look forward to meeting you. And how do you prefer to be addressed? M.E. or Maggie, or
well, Maggie is for people who know me, so I guess Maggie would work.
Well, Emmy, I guess we're just being introduced, yes. But I always ask people how they prefer to be addressed, because some people prefer one, and one or the other. So, but I put my email address there too, and I'll connect. And
yep, I got it.
Yeah, okay. Love to meet you in person here, and hopefully with COVID and this pandemic, hopefully getting a handle on it and having a little bit more of a return to normalcy, whatever that might look like. Ultimately look forward to seeing you all again, and good luck to you as well in your projects, and Crystal as well. I know you're working on some cool stuff, and kudos to you ladies at SMAC. Keep up the awesome work. I'll look forward to being back there. Yeah.
Great. And John's exhibit is open through April 30th. So Friday, April 30th. It closes at 4:30 on that day. So if you have a chance to get in and see it, please do. Otherwise, this link, what we talked about here, we are recording. We'll do an edit on this so that nobody hears me talking about a plumber before we start. And this link will be available through our website, but also the virtual show in the long version that includes all of the text is available through our website. So hopefully John gets lots of looks and sees through that link. Thank you so much for being with us, everyone, especially John. Thank you so much for sharing your work.
Thank you. Yeah, good to see you all.
All right.